Welcome to, well, I'm not exactly sure where I am right now. You know, it's been said that a picture is worth 1,000 words, and if I do the math, that means that 1 minute of video at 30 images per second, well, that's worth 1.8 million words. But that can't be right. That would be more words than there are in the English language. One thing that does seem right, though, is that video, and of course its film equivalent, is an extraordinarily powerful medium. What makes video and film so powerful is that it's the closest medium we have that enables us to recreate a view of life that we can immediately recognize, but that we rarely or ever see. That is, life through the vision of others. Drawings, paintings, and photography, well, they're powerful, but they only represent snapshots in time, a moment. Video and film, moving pictures, reproduces the living, breathing world in which we live and brings together the movement, sound, and experience of actual life in motion. But it's not just what our lives are, but rather what they could be, what they should be, or what we dream them to be. In video, humans can die and no one gets hurt, perform magic and feats that aren't physically possible, love more deeply than seems realistic in such a compressed time. As the wonderful film critic Roger Ebert once said, "We live in a box of space and time. Movies are windows in its walls. They allow us to enter other minds, not simply in the sense of identifying with the characters, but by seeing the world as another person sees it." Now, of course, that shouldn't surprise us because video has become an extraordinarily important tool for us as marketing makers. And as business communicators, video shapes culture. It pulls us into a relationship with the creator. It persuades us. From 1941, with the very first television ad that featured moving pictures for Bulova watches.
America runs on Bulova time.
Then there's 1954 and Disney's Wonderful World of Color, introducing us to the Technicolor world of television. And the coverage of a war halfway around the world in the late 1960s. To the 1981 launch of a television channel that would change the face of music, video, and an entire generation's attitude about valuing pop music. To 1995, when the first viral video went around, an executive at a television studio commissioned and passed around a crude but hysterically funny video Christmas card and inadvertently inspired a hit television show called South Park that 23 years later is still running. Then 2005, when a small internet startup founded on the idea of viral videos would launch and ultimately change the culture yet again, democratizing the distribution of video across the universe. And to 2015, when a charity can crowdsource millions of people creating a silly video and turn it into a $100 million revenue stream for their cause. To today, when the advancement of technology has come to a place where we don't even know if it's actually real any longer. We're all part of the machine. And leaving us, as I said in the beginning, well, I'm not really sure where we are. In today's world of remote work and constant connection, it feels a bit like we all live in this 16:9 HD live video stream these days. But for marketing, moving pictures, video, is perhaps the most important tool we need to master. It's digital, and well, digital makes the video star. Welcome to the digital world of video and episode 3 of Marketing Makers, the series for those that make marketing work. I'm Robert Rose, and I'm your host, and whether you're an independent consultant, a director at a Fortune 100, or a newly appointed CMO, we're all marketing makers these days. And this month, we're talking about digital video strategies. It's the art and science about how we think about including video as part of our marketing mix. And specifically in this episode, we're going to look at the classic approach of businesses creating moving pictures and how it's fundamentally changed since digital has all come about. We've all become multimedia producers, so how do you start developing those skills in your marketing and your content strategy? We'll also have a sit-down chat with one of the most talented video experts I know, and we'll also look at the future of video and how adding one more thing, interactivity to video, just might be the tipping point for how companies really leverage this medium. So, Let's get started. And to do that, I need to get out of this, well, wall of videos and get back to our Marketing Maker lab where we can get things going. Welcome to Marketing Makers. Oh, hi, everybody. Welcome to the Marketing Makers Lab. It's here that we explore in depth the background behind some of marketing's most historical concepts and how they've evolved into some of today's most modern of approaches. And today, well, you can see I pulled out one of my prized antiques. It's this Super 8 movie camera. It was pretty good. You know, it was awesome. And I was a little bit of a Spielberg, I have to say, back in the 1970s and 1980s when I was making movies with my friends. You might remember all those classics that you saw in the Big Picture show, which was Evel Knievel action figure versus the Weebles that wobble but don't fall down. It was a classic and tragic tale, an homage, if you will, to Gulliver's Travels. But I digress. Anyway, in those days, we didn't have anything fancy, of course. Each cartridge of film would handle about 2.5 minutes of actual filming. And at the standard 24 frames per second, you really weren't going to get a long take of anything. And then, of course, you'd have to wait for the lab to develop your Super 8 film, and to edit it, you would use this light board, and you could work at it frame by frame on that light board. And if you wanted to make an edit, you had a very sharp little razor to make the cut. And then, yeah, I'm not even kidding, we used transparent Scotch tape to splice the edits. It was an absolutely glorious process. And today, well, my iPhone here can shoot continuous video in high definition for hours. And I can even edit those videos immediately on my software on the phone, or transfer it to my computer for more sophisticated editing capabilities. All of that would have taken professionals weeks and months to perform back in the 1980s. And of course, my DSLR camera, my digital big 35mm camera, which is looking at me right here, or a specific digital video camera, it can do even more. It's pretty amazing, this evolution. When you consider that from 1950 to the late 1980s, the thing that only changed in those 30 years was really the size of the film and the cost of the camera. And the move from film to magnetic videotape, that was it. From 1980, from where we are today, well, we've taken an exponential leap from this kind of camera to, well, this. And that gets us to where we are with video and marketing today. So where did marketing's fascination with all these moving pictures begin? Well, let's go back. Again, we could go all the way back to 1941 and we could talk about Bulova. During a baseball game between the then Brooklyn Dodgers and the Philadelphia Phillies, Bulova, the watch company, created a 10-second advertisement which would become the very first television advertisement to run. The tagline was, "America runs on Bulova time." The total ad spend, by the way, for that placement was $9, and it was $4 for the airtime and a charge of $5 for station charges. Unfortunately for Bulova, the ad only reached a few thousand households, as there were only about 4,000 TV sets installed in the New York area at that time. Television advertising would, of course, become the gold standard of how companies that weren't media companies created moving pictures, and would be that way for decades to come. But we could also just as easily go to the 1950s. Now, the power of video was beginning to be recognized by corporations as a way of training employees, motivating sales teams, engaging executives, even informing the public. This is where the whole idea of the corporate video would come to play.
This morning, when you came to work and opened your door, just because someone picked up a pencil, looked over some books, had a cup of hot coffee, did you think you were going to have an accident?
This whole genre of video would become so ingrained into corporations that the style of low budget, bad acting, bad scripts, and itself would become almost an art form. In the 1980s, the introduction of the VHS video cassette and prosumer cameras, well, it really democratized the ability for companies to produce video at scale. So the corporate video idea really started to pick up. And again, whether it was training videos for employees or hype videos for investors or consumers, or to get anybody excited about a new product launch, corporate video really started to take off. But as fun as that is, let's actually skip ahead to when digital video really began to become part of our overall marketing and communication strategy. That tipping point really came in 2005 when YouTube launched, and it was started by former PayPal employees and truly had a meteoric rise. Within its first few months of launch, the site was already gathering around 30,000 viewers per day. We were starved for video. And 6 months in, well, the site was seeing well over 2 million viewers per day. And by the summer of 2006, a year later, they were seeing more than 20,000 new videos being uploaded on a daily basis, and the site was already serving up more than 100 million videos every single day. Now, interestingly, Google had itself launched its own service called Google Video, which had failed by the end of 2005, and so in 2006, a little more than a year after YouTube was nothing more than a domain and a dream, Google purchased YouTube for $1.6 billion. But why marketing? Why did digital video suddenly become so hot with marketers? Well, as we talked about way back in our first episode of Marketing Makers, it comes down to one word: search. That's right, it's the interactivity. That way of being able to create that two-way street between those searching for content versus those creating content. That was the magic for both digital marketing and for the singular part that video plays as a format in that relationship. See, prior to YouTube, the only way a consumer might discover video content was either by stumbling upon it on their television or if someone shared it with you. But now, with YouTube, you could search and you could find. And it wouldn't be long until YouTube would claim the spot of the second most popular search engine right behind its parent company, Google.com. So as you might expect, marketers wanted to utilize YouTube as a content channel. And so came the hyperactive growth of providing all kinds of video to this channel. From how-to videos to commercials to music videos, training films, just anything you could think of, YouTube morphed into its own internet, really. One global platform of one particular content type, video. But, all right, well, what does that mean for us today, here in 2021? Well, as we've also spoken about on previous episodes, our media planning now includes digital video as a format. But now, of course, it's not only YouTube, but it's putting video on our own website or content hub or email or mobile app or kiosk or any of 100 other interfaces where our consumers may be looking to discover video content. It may also mean utilizing private distribution networks or hosting so that we avoid the advertising that power sites like YouTube are doing, or have better analytics on who is watching through different tools. So in 2021, we have to think of digital video differently than we did from the analog video of the 1950s all the way through the video cassettes of the 1980s. Then there was just those two formats, film or VHS. And distribution methods were either, well, playing it live for an audience in a confined space, like a theater or a classroom, or renting time on television, or giving the audience a physical cassette to play on their own home device in their own time. We have begun to think of video differently today, and we have to think of it differently even than the early to mid 2000s. It was the whole idea of searching for content that meant our objective would be to create as much digital video as we could And then, ultimately, it simply became a byproduct of everything else we were doing. And this, quite frankly, is where so many brands remain today. We simply upload to YouTube our TV commercials as they are. Or we upload a duplicate copy of the voiceover slides webinar we just gave live. Or we repurpose the product unboxing or the training video we did for sales into searchable snippets. All of them not terribly engaging for the purpose they have as moving pictures or experiences either way. In 2021, video must be more than just a byproduct of a digital strategy. It is core to a digital content strategy. Like any content strategy, video requires purpose and should be created, managed, and activated with the structure and optimization for all the different channels that it may be experienced in. In 2021, if we produce a webinar, marketers must ask not how to upload this webinar into YouTube, but how might this webinar be changed and optimized into a video version that can be uploaded to YouTube. If we produce a podcast, the question isn't which logos to fade in and out as we stream the audio through a video platform like YouTube for searchability, but rather, should we also shoot it on video so that we can show it live as a video as well? Our how-to product or our how-to video, it's no longer simply good enough to simply repurpose stock video from our sales training videos or product videos from 3 generations ago. We have to create purposeful and specific content that lives in a compelling context so that we might not only be findable, but we can engage that audience as well. If we create a 30-second advertisement for a television spot, we should ask, is there a deeper story or a more valuable or compelling version that we can create for channels in which we're not limited to 30 seconds? Put very simply, if digital video is treated as a strategy, then it should be created like any other content strategy, an active product ecosystem where we create content purposely to be optimized for the channel on which it will be experienced. So, what are the components of this digital content strategy? Well, as you might expect, we start, as we do with any smart content strategy, with number 1, a clear goal. If we're going to start with a digital video approach that feeds either a broader campaign or its own content marketing idea, like a video blog or a video magazine, or an interview series like you might see here, well, then we've got to have a clear mission for what pieces, episodes, or structures we are creating. The best place to start is where in the customer's journey are you trying to optimize? How is this useful for your customer or prospective customer? How is it useful for your audience to experience this in video? That gets us to number 2, what's the story architecture? Now, just as great campaigns have a messaging architecture, so too should your video project have a story architecture. In a television series or a movie series, a producer might call this a show Bible. It is a clear description of everything from what's allowed in this universe to the key messaging point, to the tone, the visual, the aesthetics, the sound, the editorial guidelines, and perhaps even a script to your story. And that gets us to number 3, a production strategy. Now, one of the benefits to really slowing down our creation, ideation, and scripting process into that story architecture is that we think through all of the different areas where we may want to use a video across this strategy. Different channels, different contexts, different time, different lengths, different formats. A great example of this is where you have a customer story or an influencer and you'll be shooting an advertisement or some promotional spot. Why not think through all of the production aspects of that effort? Do you need the longer version? Do you need the behind-the-scenes footage? Do you need an interview with the star or other participants? Do you need different versions or with different cameras or different aspect ratios? High-end versus iPhone, for example. Vertical versus landscape, for example. Thinking through the campaign and the production needs so that you actually get more assets than you need, that will be optimal. That leads us, in an iterative fashion, to the 4th step, our distribution strategy. Where do we want to distribute this video or this series or this landing page? Not all of video is appropriate for every channel, but nor should any channel be immediately precluded simply because it's not part of the main marketing campaign. You never know. In other words, if you dream up a video social media campaign, for example, and only capture it in a vertical video format with bad sound, what happens when that video goes viral and you want to run it on television? Understand the options behind your distribution strategy and how they may change over time. Go back and forth between steps 3 and steps 4 to get to that bill of materials that you want to create in your project. Then 5, measure accordingly. By creating it as an integrated content strategy, you should be able to understand which channels, which formats, and which stories really resonated the most. You'll also be in a great position to repurpose the pieces that perform well over time, so that over time you can double down on those assets and reuse them in all kinds of different contexts. These are the key pieces to a digital video strategy approach. But now we're left with a question, which is, how should we be planning for this future? Well, we'll talk about that in just a bit. But what I'd like to do now is get to the next segment of our show. It's time to go into the field and learn how to actually make this work. Let's learn from someone who's been working in digital video marketing for some time and can really help us become better marketing makers. It's time for me to introduce this week's special marketing maker. Before we get to this month's Marketing Maker interview, we'd like to take just a moment to thank our sponsor for this episode, Vidyard. Understanding your marketing video's performance can be like looking for a needle in a haystack. Vidyard's online video marketing platform is a magnet for your needle. Upload or create marketing videos and embed them into email campaigns, landing pages, and blog posts to generate and engage more sales-ready leads. Use interactive video elements and video personalization to boost viewer engagement, accelerate the buyer's journey, and convert viewers into pipeline. Get started today for free at vidyard.com/marketing. And now, back to Marketing Makers. Lee Judge is the co-founder and CMO of Content Monsta, a digital content agency. He also serves as Global Digital Marketing Manager at Hexagon Geosystems. Previously, Lee served as Senior Digital Marketing Director at B2B customer service software company Cicada, connecting the organization's sales and marketing operations. Focused on B2B marketing for over 20 years, Lee is both a digital marketing practitioner and creative content entrepreneur. He is a leading LinkedIn video creator, Forbes Agency Council member, and engaging event speaker providing training on digital marketing, content creation, social selling, and sales enablement from the marketing point of view. He truly is the quintessential example of an innovative digital marketing maker. Lee, my friend, how you doing?
Doing great, Robert. Good to talk to you again.
It's good to talk to you. You know, I don't think there's anybody right now that is killing it to the extent that you are in video. I mean, we've worked together. You've taught some of our speakers at Content Marketing Institute on how to do video better and how to do presentations in this new world of online video better. You've got an entire company really devoted to this whole idea of becoming the media and really rocking the idea of producing video content. Tell me, you know, in so many words, what's changed, right? What, you know, not just with COVID and where we are in 2021, but what's changed broadly speaking from the way that we used to look at video to how it's really a much more integrated approach these days for people and for businesses, right? Is it a more integrated strategy?
Yeah, and I hate to use the cliche of it went from a nice to have to a must have, but the reason that happened is because those who have to be the gatekeepers to the must have are more open to it now because there's more ways to do it, and it's easier to do some certain formats, and so. And it's definitely more than just a format. You know, in fact, I can give you two or three reasons why it's more than just a format.
Yeah.
It's a source of content, instead of being just content, is a source of content. So if you can stop at format, but if you have a proper strategy, then video is what I call big content. It's a starting point for developing a message that can be delivered across channels and multiple formats. So that's one reason. It's big content that is not bound by any one format. And then by it not be just bound by one format, I mean, even within video, you have live video, which is different from scripted video. You have long form video, which is different from social video. And then when you consider these things, you have to realize that video, is more than just a format. It's definitely an entire approach to creating content. And then it goes much further than that.
Yeah, it's funny because in so many ways, businesses have either seen it as, all right, well, we're going to pull out a camera and do a training video, or we're going to pull out a camera and do an unboxing or a how-to video, or we're going to take $1 million and shoot a TV ad, right? There's sort of nothing in between. And now what I think I hear you saying is we need to sort of reboot and reset all of that idea to get to this idea of big content and really think to ourselves, all right, what are we doing here? Are we doing a live video shoot at an event where we want to create a news type event, or are we doing a scripted video where we're actually going to do something, that's storytelling, or is a documentary, or is its own TV show or variety show? We almost need to rethink our video strategy less as, well, here's a message that we need to communicate through video, and much more of a, how do we actually incorporate content, the stories we want to tell, the things we want to do into that big idea. Am I getting that right?
Yeah. And even for those who still, want to look at it through the lens of a format, you got to consider for video, the bar, it can be much higher depending on your audience, and it can be even much lower than other content depending on your channel. So to clarify that, I mean, if your audience is corporate and that's who that particular piece of content is for, then the bar could be much higher. But if your content is, your channel is going to be social or YouTube, perhaps the bar could be lower. So there's so many nuances to video than just more than just a format. And then even the technical requirements can vary drastically depending on, especially when you compare it to, say, written content, for example. Written content, there's really not much difference, high, low, of the technical form of how it happens. It's words. But with video, the technical range is very wide, from your phone to a full production set. In fact, when Content Monsta launched, one of the first things we did was, in terms of video, we looked at the landscape of competitors. And we used some of the content we had created for, I wouldn't even call them a client at the time, so a company we did video for. And I sent that video to a competitor and said, hey, I'm interested in video like this. What would you charge for it? Oh my God, their price was astronomical. So then I researched them. And the first thing I see on their website is this big, giant, like moving truck type thing with big, giant Hollywood lights in it and all this equipment. And I'm thinking that's why they cost so much, because they've been filming, TV commercials for the past 20, 30 years, and their mind frame is still stuck on big budget. And so because of that, you have your corporate leaders who go, well, if you want to do video, that's what it looks like. We got to have big corporate budget to call this guy with this big truck and all these hot lights. That isn't true. So where Content Monsta came in at, we said, well, you know what? We know better. We know that we can do a lot. We can do the same thing with a lot less equipment. And it wasn't a matter of undercutting. It was a matter of today's technology can do it much more efficiently. And so we began creating content like that guy with the big truck, and could do it faster, more economical, and not to be a commercial, but that's how any marketing, any video company should have done in the past 5-6 years, is realize you can do things a lot smaller. And I think even companies in-house have realized that as well, because those who are doing and looking to do video in-house, the bar is even lower there technology-wise, that they can get in the game without even having to outsource.
I love that you just said that. It's such an important point, right? Which is so many businesses come to video with this preconceived notion of, oh, we're talking Spielberg and movie sets and TV sets. And
Yeah.
our ad agency used to charge us $1 million to do a 30-second spot. And oh my gosh, we can't do that, right?
Hmm.
Or if we're going to do that, we have to be willing to invest that much care and feeding into,
Hmm.
the shooting of the video. Or they go, yeah, but okay, go shoot it on your iPhone, right?
Yeah.
And there's in between, right? There's technology, to your excellent point, has enabled us to do so much more sophisticated things that aren't just either a Super 8 camera or an iPhone
Yeah.
or a Hollywood movie set, right? We can do a lot with an approach that makes sense with today's technology and just not having those preconceived notions.
Yeah, and that's where the knowledge comes in. I mean, you know, people may say, well, Lee, why would you tell a company they could do it with their iPhone? Well, they don't have the knowledge to do it with their iPhone to
Yeah.
a certain quality, because even with the iPhone, you're going to want to have the right kind of lighting to make it work right. So, in the audio, there's a lot to it. Even no matter what your equipment, it's not the equipment that makes the video, it's the producer of the video. So the knowledge has to still be there, but at the same time, it's important to know, even when COVID struck and we had to rethink our video shoot strategy, it wasn't a big leap for us to say, let's do a one-man shoot. Let's send a camera somewhere, just one man and equipment, and get the job done, because we've done it pre-COVID and it can be done after. We didn't need to pull out the video warehouse of a truck to do it.
Yeah, I mean, it's I can't stress enough how important that point is. It's one of those things where, even here, we're, you and I talking, thousands of miles away from each other, and yet we're still managing to do a live video shoot. Neither of us are using iPhones. I don't think you're using an iPhone to do
No, it's
this.
definitely a
but,
DSLR.
but at the same time, we're doing something that's more than, quite frankly, not a Hollywood, movie set either. We're both in our home offices, and we're both using what would be considered prosumer, I guess, equipment, and doing so, I mean, again, more than $1, but less than a $1 million Hollywood budget.
We won't even get into switching.
And there you go. See, now see, now you've got a capability that I don't have there. That's awesome.
It's called overkill.
Yeah. So talk to me a little bit about, okay, so someone's trying to get going here, right? Someone, you've got a marketing manager, one of our marketing makers here trying to get into video and approach it as a marketing strategy. What's the approach? What's the steps that they should be taking to sort of do this?
Okay, so I would say first, just like any other content, understand your audience and their expectations, and how and where do they consume video? That would be step one. Do they consume video mostly on YouTube or LinkedIn or on people's websites? Also, marketing is a part of the sales process. So how will your sales team deliver video content, and what are their needs? Does your sales team need to work their video somehow into the sales process? Then secondly, I'd begin to understand what it takes to match your audience's visual standard. We spoke earlier about the quality of the video. Does it have to be, Spielberg level movie quality, or can it be cell phone quality? Can it be just personal content from the people within your company? So, is your audience okay or accustomed to phone video? Does your organization have a standard that you have to meet? Does your sales team have reservations about certain styles of video? So you take those first two things, and then based on that, you've answered what you've answered so far. Then you decide on the level of production that you need to obtain, and is that level obtainable in-house, or do you need to outsource it? Does that video, that represents your company need to be a higher quality? Does live video requires special equipment, special expertise? Do you have that in-house? Live events, which is something we should probably talk about today too. It requires what I call a person in the chair, to make things run smoothly. So, once you figure out, the level of quality you need to do, your audience, what their expectations are, how it fits into your business process, that'll tell you where to start in terms of, starting whether it's in-house or outsourced.
Yeah, and it feels like, much of what gets outsourced is execution, right? The production, the shooting, the actual editing, all of those things. And, but of course it all starts with, whether or not you're doing a great script or whether you're doing a lot, it's sort of that purpose is what I hear you saying, is sort of figuring out that purpose first, and then figuring out all of the assets, the video that you're going to need to fulfill that purpose. You would be aware, and certainly others that are, have been doing video shooting or film shooting for a while, we call it coverage, right? And getting all of those different shots, getting all of the different places and thinking through that purpose first can really help you develop that sort of bill of materials that you need to get out of that production crew, whether you're going to outsource it or insource it or create it yourself.
Yeah, and that's a step many people miss because, long before the camera turns on, there's a lot of strategy to plan on, what is your story? What do you need to capture? Even from a producer standpoint, storyboarding it out, even if it's not a scripted story, you still have to have a plan of who's going to speak when, what is our expected outcome from all of this. That needs planning. And even before your camera rolls again, you need to know, once you get this finished product, what are you going to do with it? How are we going to repurpose it? Where's it going to be? Do we need to format it in a certain way for social or for YouTube or for however? All that should be planned before you even shoot any frame of footage. You need to understand how you plan to use it once you get it.
Yeah. So, well, in just the few minutes we've got remaining here, I would love, so many people make mistakes in this. And, what are the easy traps that you see companies and individuals that want to get into this video thing? What are they falling into? What are the traps that they're falling into these days?
I think one of them is moving too slowly and overthinking it. I can even cite my own examples. I've seen video content come out and go, wow, I wrote down a note to do that video last month, but I didn't do it and someone just did it. So moving too slowly, overthinking it can definitely cost you. If you don't educate your customers, your competitor will. So that's one thing I always say to sales groups. Another thing is thinking that video is one dimensional, that if we do video, then it's just for corporate. Or if we do video, it's just for social. Video is for all those things. And if you have a proper strategy, then you're thinking about all those things when you create it. It's not just one dimension. And many companies think we create video for X versus XYZ. It's for our YouTube channel or it's for our website, without considering all the places that you can utilize that video. And then finally, when we've realized so much in the past year, is trying to produce a live event, doing live video without a remote live producer. Just because you've mastered Zoom doesn't mean you've mastered bringing together lots of people for your live event and then rebroadcasting it. So that's been a big mistake we've probably all experienced sometime in the past year.
Exactly. Well, my friend, this has been fantastic. And I want to thank you so much for this. And, just real quick, where can people find you to find your great video?
Well, first of all, please connect with me on LinkedIn. That's my favorite place to hang out. It's of course A. Lee Judge, and then contentmonsta.com is the website. I guess I've done my shameless self-promotion already for Content Monsta. And then me personally, aleejudge.com. So that's where you can find me.
Awesome. My friend, thank you so very much for being on Marketing Makers. I really, truly appreciate it.
Thank you, Robert.
Well, welcome back to the Marketing Makers Lab, and it's here where we talk about the future of making this practice of digital video even better. Now, as a marketing maker, you now understand the history and core concepts of video as a part of a core content strategy. All of that, of course, is part of your integrated marketing and planning. Remember to go back to the previous episodes to talk about those things. These are all core concepts that will help you become a smarter and more savvy marketing maker. But how do we make this practical? Especially in today's very fragmented media world, how do you as a marketing maker apply a video marketing approach to modern content and marketing strategies? Well, it goes back to something I talked about at the top of the show. You've got to remember that the technology of video, it's been democratized. Anybody can now create a video at a fraction of the time, budget, and effort that it used to take. Unlike the 70s, 80s, 90s, even the early 2000s, creating video, it's not differentiating any longer. And so, they started to create it everywhere. More than 20,000 hours of video have been uploaded in the time that you've watched this simple episode. But you have to remember something about the transformative power of video that we talked about early on in this show. The power of video has nothing to do with technology. It has everything to do with what content and creativity you put into the video. The moving images of the house falling on Buster Keaton, or John Cusack standing with a boombox over his head, the woman throwing the hammer in the Apple advertisement of 1984, Baby Shark Dance and its 8 billion views in 4 years, or Nike's You Can't Stop Us video of 2020. They all have one thing in common: powerful images, great content. This is our secret. If we can actually take the time and the effort to treat our digital video strategy as a creative strategy, if we can look at our strategy as one that is built to amplify and optimize our big ideas instead of one to simply scale our small ideas, well, then we have the opportunity to create the iconic images of tomorrow. But very simply, don't make your content into video. Make video content. Learn how to do it with a video interface in mind from the very beginning. And make no mistake, technology will start to impede and make this journey even more difficult. New developments in artificial intelligence will make today's quantity and speed of content uploads seem like the Ice Age. New technologies such as deep fakes and democratized special effects will create both new opportunities as well as dangerous distractions from real value. And here's the thing. The coming interactivity of video enabled with technology, that'll give us another layer, a tool of engagement to add into the powerful images. We'll not only be able to see the world through the video creator's eyes, in many ways we may begin to start shaping that world as well. Watch for the interactive technologies that transform video interfaces from one-way experiences into multiple path journeys. Clothing retailer Ted Baker, one of my favorites by the way, has integrated this beautifully with their click-to-shop video, where interactive links to shop for the clothes you're seeing are right there embedded into the video itself. This is, of course, a promotional video now, where it's simply models walking around. One of the questions we might start to ask ourselves as we watch this video, we start to think about our video strategies is, how might we see the Ted Baker video and push the envelope here further? How might we make a video that is truly iconic, memorable, and interactive? That's the future of video and marketing. That's the practical advice I have for you for the future, and I know you'll be a marketing maker that makes all of that happen. Well, that's it for episode 3 of Marketing Makers in my 16 by 9 kind of place here on the wall. It's kind of cool here, and well, there's certainly a lot of content to choose from. As you start thinking about video and your ability to really craft beautiful, remarkable, extraordinary experiences, just remember the classic quote from media professor and author Marshall McLuhan. He once said about media, "When any new form comes to the foreground of things, we naturally look at it through our old stereos." He meant our eyeballs there. We're just trying to fit the old things into the new form. Today's digital video, it's a new form. If we take the time to really see how we might not just fit it into our old forms, but stretch it into all new ones, we might just find that it enables us to create the iconic images that shape a culture. And that is what marketing makers do. Until I see you next month, it's your story to tell. Tell them well.